Rogalski here for Artbeads, and today I'm going to show you how to do tubular peyote. Now some people will see this as spiral peyote, which is really just tubular peyote, and I'm going to show you the trick to doing that. I'm going to show you some finished pieces so you can see how this stitch is used, and then I'm going to go to the beads and show you bead by bead how to do tubular peyote, and we're going to learn that right now. Tubular peyote is a version of peyote stitch that allows you to create either a straight rope or an illusion of a spiral, which is really fun. So the samples I have here, the white rope is straight tubular peyote. And it's tubular because you're going to tie it into a loop around a paper tube like you do in some other stitches. You can see with the crystals here that it looks like it's spiraling around, and the same with this big purple cuff. And actually they're not actually spiraling, it's a concentric, well, it is spiraling, but it really looks like a spiral because you change out the sizes of the beads. So you're accentuating the fact that working like a spiral staircase, it looks like this is actually twisting, when really all it is stepping up and stepping down in sizes to graduate the spiral so that it gives this fantastic illusion of the piece actually twisting, when it's just a spiral that's just connected together or made into a beaded bead. So let me show you how we do the basic spiral peyote, and then you can go and play with different sizes to your heart's content. Here I have strung 10 beads on a thread, and I'm going to tie it into a ring around a paper tube to help hold my structure, because when you do tubular stitches, it often helps when you're getting started to work around a form, and it can just be a piece of paper that's rolled up to suit the size. So I'm going to take my working thread and the tail, and I'm just going to tie it into a little ring with a square knot, and then I'm going to insert the tube inside. So there's my little ring of beads. That's all I've done. And now I'm going to make sure that my paper tube is just rolled up skinny enough to go inside, like that. And I keep my tail down because then I can hold onto it. And I wiggle the tube a little bit to expand and fill out my ring. Now you have your knotted ring around your paper tube, and you want to take your working thread and needle and pass through a bead in either direction depending on what's comfortable for you, clockwise or counterclockwise. You don't want to work starting right from the knot because your thread will skew the beads a little bit out of position. So I'm just passing I'm passing clockwise around here, and I'm going to pull my thread through so that my thread is exiting a bead. Now I'm going to work in peyote. I'm just going to pick up a bead, skip a bead, and pass through the next bead. And make sure that your thread doesn't get stuck on your tube. And you can see how there's the next round and the beads are sitting right on top of each other. And I'm going to pass around. I'm going to pick up another bead from one of these. I'm working again with beautiful Artbeads designer blend assortment of colors. Tension is important. You want to make sure that you're pulling the rings tight as you work them, but can you see how those two beads again are sitting right one above the other? So I'm going to work quickly now. I'm going to pick up a bead, skip a bead, pass through the next bead, work all the way around. Now I'm working with an even number of beads in my ring. I had strung 10, and I'll show you what happens when we get to the beginning. Skip a bead, pass through a bead. You can see why working around a tube is really helpful, because it really holds those beads up. Now I'm going to pick up my last bead. Skip a bead, pass through a bead. Now I'm back to the first bead, and here's where we do what's called stepping up to the next round. I'm going to skip a bead, pass through the first bead in the previous row, and on a diagonal up through the first bead in the round that we just stitched. And that's going to put you in a position to start your next row. So if you look at what we've done, we have every other bead now popping up, and a space here where your next round is going to go in between this dark green bead and the light bead. So let's keep going around the tube. I'll pick up another color here, this really cool one. Skip a bead, pass through the next up bead. See how that just fit right in there. And turn your tube, pick up a bead, pass through the next up bead. Around and around we go. You can see how that tube is forming around the paper tube. And you can just keep going and make a rope. These are size 8 beads, so it's got this really nice texture. I'm going to keep working as I'm chatting with you. You're going to just keep picking up a bead, skipping a bead, and working. And remember when you get back to the beginning to do that step up. So you do have to pay attention when you get back to the beginning that you want to make sure that you're going to pass through the last bead and the first bead that you stitched in that round. And again, that's called a step up. So you should always have every other bead popping up when you do this. Now the samples that I showed you that made that spiral, how that's done is by starting to substitute in gradually larger beads and then smaller beads. And you can play around with that and experiment, but that's the basics for tubular peyote.